Hello and welcome to this Unreal Engine 5 tutorial. We will be using Unreal Engine 5.1. You can use whatever version you want, however the further away you get, the more changes may have occurred. That being said, today we're going to be turning on a light only if we're looking at the switch. This might be a bit more advanced than the normal tutorials you're used to, so buckle up and let's get in there. The first thing I'm going to do is hit Control Space to open up my content browser. Yours will probably start looking a little bit something like this. If you don't already have a folder for your blueprints, I suggest the naming convention of your name and underscore and BPs. Open that up, and within there, you're going to want to create an actors folder. I already have one here. Within the actors folder, I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a blueprint class. This will be an actor, and I'm going to name this light underscore BP. I'm also going to right click one more time and create another blueprint class, another actor, and call this switch underscore BP. Let's go ahead and open up the light BP. Once it opens, let's go ahead and add a component. Go up to the top left and click add. We are going to add a static mesh. I'm going to name mine light underscore SM for static mesh. On the right hand side, under our details, you'll see that we have something for static meshes. Go ahead and hit the drop down panel and type in the word lamp. And you'll see that Unreal Engine comes with a default SM lamp wall. We're going to click that and it will be added to your blueprint. Now we're going to add one more component. Click up here on add again, and now you're going to add a point light. However, I did something you need to watch out for. If you take a look at our components, you'll see that we have the light BP, a default scene root, a light SM, and then a point light. And it kind of goes down like in a parent-child relationship. If I close the light SM, the point light goes away. Make sure this doesn't happen. The default scene root can be the main parent. However, the light SM needs to not be the parent of the point light. If this happens, simply drag the point light onto the default scene root and just hit attach, not make new root, just attach. Without it being a child of the light SM, let's go ahead and move it up. If you don't have the three arrows here, you might have these circles or these squares. Simply press W on the keyboard and you'll get the move tool. Let's move it up into position about where the light bulb would be on this wall mounted light. Now we're going to go over to the event graph. In the event graph, for now, let's go ahead and grab all three of these defaults and hit delete. Let's right click and we're going to type in custom event. Then we'll name our custom event turn on. As the custom event would suggest, we are going to turn the light on when we call this function. In order to do that, we're going to pull out point light from our components and drop it into the event graph. This gives us a reference to the point light. From the point light, I'm going to pull out and type in set visibility. We will plug turn on into the set visibility. And right now, if you take a look, the new visibility is set to false, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. Now let's create another custom event, and we're going to call this one turn off. Some of you may have caught the mistake I just made. This is turning the light on, so we want the new visibility to be true, not false. However, you'll probably guess that we are going to do the exact same thing down here on the bottom. So I'm simply going to copy and paste it, and then set this visibility to false because we're turning the light off. Let's go ahead and save and compile. As of right now, you'll note that we have nothing calling turn on and we have nothing calling turn off. So how do we go about setting these to either turn on or turn off? I like to do this with a custom event I like to call toggle light. So let's create a custom event and call it toggle light. What this is going to do is check a Boolean on whether the light is currently on or off. However, we have to create that variable. On the left-hand side under the variables, we're going to click this plus. The default is already a Boolean, and what we're going to name it is simply on. We're going to drag on out, and we're going to select get, because we just need a reference to the Boolean. We're then going to create a branch. In order to do that, you're going to hold B and click. You can also just right click and type in branch. However, it's much quicker to just hold B and click. Go ahead and plug on into the branch and toggle light into the branch. So let's take a look. Is the light on? If true, then we want to turn off the light. Is the light on? If false, then we want to turn on the light. However, right now, the Boolean never gets updated. So let's add that to our previous code. When we turn the light on, we want to set the Boolean to true. When we turn the light off, we want to set the Boolean to false. Let's go ahead and save and compile. You might be thinking, well, congratulations, you created another custom event that calls these two functions, but nothing calls the toggle light function. And right you are. So let's talk about how we do that. I'm going to go ahead and grab this tab and add it to the top of my main Unreal Engine window. I'm going to hit Control Space, and now I'm going to open up the switch BP. For now, because we don't have a default static mesh for a switch, let's just add a static mesh, name it switch SM for static mesh, and over here for the static mesh, let's just choose cube and add cube static mesh. And we should get a cube, and that will be our switch for now. Let's go ahead and save and compile and head over to the event graph. Per the usual, I'm going to delete the 3 default functions. On the left-hand side under variables, we're going to do something you may have never done before. Go ahead and click add, and we're going to name this lights. Now, the type of variable we are going to create is actually going to be, if we type in light underscore BP, you'll see that we can get a reference to the light BP that we have already created. So just click on object reference, then next to light BP, right click, and it should turn into this grid. That means that we now have an array of lights that we have access to. However, how do we add lights to that array? Well, if we hit this eyeball here and open it up, it'll be very simple to add them very soon. So just make sure it's set up like this for now, and we'll continue. So let's think about this logically. If the user uses the light switch, they either want to turn on the lights or turn them off. However, we don't know how many lights one switch may be affecting. Sometimes you just want one light to one switch, whereas other times you might have a hallway of lights all on one switch. And that is why we are going to approach this problem as if there could be multiple. Go ahead and drag lights out onto the event graph and select Get. Now create a custom event, and we're going to call it toggle switch. Out of the array of lights, we are going to type for each, and then we'll select the for each loop. What a for each loop does is it's going to go through this array, and for every single light, it is going to do a specific task that we tell it to do. On the right hand side, you'll see one is labeled array element. This will be the current light that it's going through the cycle on, which means that if we pull out of the array element, we should be able to toggle light. The reason we can access the toggle light function that we created in the light BP is because over here on the left hand side, we set the variable to this specific blueprint. So now everything in this array is one of these blueprints. So now what we're going to do is put the loop body into the toggle light. To simplify what I just said, we take a list of the lights that we select. It goes through each single one of them and toggles the lights. However, we currently can't access this function, the toggle switch function. We can walk up to the switch and do whatever we want, but the game is not programmed to let us use toggle switch. So how do we go about that? Go ahead and save and compile, and now what you're going to do is you're going to go into the project settings. If yours isn't open by default, simply click on Edit and then select Project Settings. With project settings open, you're going to the left-hand side and you're going to look for the option Input. Click on Input and you'll be given this window. You'll note that from a previous tutorial, under action mappings, I already have use set up on F. In order to do this, I simply clicked on the plus arrow next to action mappings. I then labeled it whatever I wanted to call it. However, just remember what you named it. And then I clicked on this keyboard and I pressed F. You can choose whatever key you like, of course, just remember what you set it to. With this setup, we're gonna move over to the first person character. I already have the code made, but we're gonna go over it just in case you do not. Let's take a look and see what I've done. Input action use is the thing we set up in the project settings. As you can see, it's labeled use and F. What that means is that whenever we call this right here, the input action use, this is not a custom event. I'll go ahead and delete it and show you. If I right click and type in the word use, you'll see that we have all kinds of options. However, if you scroll down, eventually you'll see action event use. That means whenever the player pushes the F button, because that's what we set it to, we will run the code line trace. Currently, you will not have access to line trace. So what you need to do is right click, create a custom event, and call it line trace. Obviously, I already have mine here, but this is how you get access to the line trace event. After you create the custom event line trace, make sure you plug in your input action use into the line trace. For the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to delete this and re-add it so you can see what's happening. The first thing you want to do is pull out of line trace and you want to create a line trace by channel. What we're going to do is essentially shoot a line out from the player's face and see if they're currently looking at the thing we're wanting to interact with. This is how we're going to achieve the player only being able to interact with the switch if they're looking at it. However, you'll see that we need a start and an end point. So how do we create that? Let's go ahead and get a reference to a first person camera. Pull this onto the grid, and we can use the first person camera because this is essentially the eyes or the face of the player. So from first person character, type in get world location. Easily enough, this is the start location of our line. No matter where we're at, our face needs to be the start of the line. However, we need to know the direction and the length of the line to get the end point. In order to do this, from the first person camera, type in get forward vector. The forward vector is going to be the direction that the line needs to go. So now we have a starting point and we have a direction, but how do we get a length? We do that by multiplying the forward vector by a float. So pull out of the forward vector and we're going to type in multiply, if I can spell it correctly. By default, you'll notice that it wants another vector. If you simply right click this pin, we can convert the pin to a float single precision. Once you've done that, type in the number 225. This number is how long you want the user's range to be. Obviously, the larger the number, the longer the range. This is 225 units in the Unreal Engine. The only reason I know this number off the top of my head is I've done this so many times. So we have the direction, we have the length, and we have the start location, but we don't have the end location. So what we need to do is take the forward vector, add to or multiply 225 to it, and then we simply add that to the world location. So if we pull out of the world location and type in add and connect this to the add node, we now have our end location. For the sake of learning what we just did, on the right hand side, we are going to draw the debug type and we are going to put it to for duration. You do not have to do this if you do not want to test it. I just want to show you exactly what we're doing. I'm going to hit save and compile, head to the first person map viewport and hit play. Now, anytime I press the F button, you'll note that a red line shows up in the exact direction that I'm looking for 225 units. What's going to happen is, let's pretend this is the switch. We're going to hit the use button, and you can see by that red square, it has indicated that it has hit something. We are going to add logic so it knows if the object is usable and use it if it is. In order to detect whether or not the actor is usable, we need to create something called an interface. Go ahead and hit Control Space and go back to your content. We're going to go into our BPs, and you're going to see that I have a folder labeled Blueprint Interfaces. If you do not, create one and open it. Inside, you'll see that I already have a use interface. To do this, simply right-click, go to Blueprints, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see one that says Blueprint Interface. Click on this and name yours use_interface. I'm not going to, as I already have it. Once you have it, open it up. When you open it, it should look something like this. On the right-hand side, click on New Function. It should make it so you can rename it. If you cannot, press F2 and you should be able to now. Go ahead and call this Use. Then, underneath, click on Call in Editor and make sure it's checked. Save and compile, and that's it for here. Now, because we want the switch to be usable, we need to do something with the switch BP. Go up to the top and click on Class Settings. On the right-hand side, you'll see that we have inherited interfaces. Click Add and begin typing in use_interface. You'll see that our interface pops up. Go ahead and click it and hit Save and compile. Let's head back to the first-person character and complete the line trace. The first thing we're going to do out of the line trace is create a branch. The reason we're creating a branch is because we need to know if it hit something. If it didn't, we do not need to run any more of the code. So simply create a branch by either holding B and clicking, or by right-clicking and typing in branch, and plug in the return value and the flow control into the branch. Next, create a second branch where we're going to check and see if the hit object implements the interface we just created. To check this, we will need the out hit. Pull out the out hit, don't type in anything, and you'll see that we have break hit result. Go ahead and click that. Yours will not have hit actor by default. Simply hit this drop down menu and you'll get a giant list of things that it could hit. From hit actor, pull out and type in does implement interface and select it. Once you've done this, you should be able to collapse this again so it saves you some space. The interface will obviously be the use interface that we created. Take the return value and plug it into your second branch. So if it does hit something, and it does implement the interface, then I'm going to delete this just so I can show you what we're going to do. From true, pull out and type in the word use. And you'll see that we have use interface and then use message. This is the one you're looking for. As for its target, it'll be the hit actor from earlier. So go ahead and pull out and plug it in. If you don't know how to use these pins, so for example, if you plug yours in and it's doing this disgusting line, simply double click anywhere on the line to create a pin. You can then move the pins around to make it a lot more organized. Save and compile. TLDR, shoot a line forward. If it's got a use interface, use it. So now we can tell the switch that we hit it, and we can tell the switch to use, but the switch doesn't know what to do with that information. So let's head back to the switch. Since we've implemented the use interface onto the switch BP, we can now right click in its event graph and type in the word use. Now we are going to scroll up until we find event use. This is the event that is going to be called whenever the line trace sends the message. So from the event use, we'll pull out and type in toggle switch. Now we'll hit save and compile. Now, in the first person map, let's view how to add things to the switch's light array, so that way it will actually turn on and off lights. First thing I'm going to do is look at this wall here, and I'm going to go to my blueprints and my actors. I'm going to take a couple of these light BPs and place them on the wall. Note that the lights are already on. This is a problem because the default value of our light is that they are off. So let's go change this really quickly. Head to the light BP and click on the point light. Go over to the search under the details and type in visible. Then uncheck visible. Go ahead and hit save and compile and return to your first person map viewport. You'll now see that the lights are turned off, which is exactly what we want. Now we'll go ahead and pull in the switch. Obviously this switch is absolutely massive and not what you would want to use, but it's just here for the sake of testing. As of right now, this switch has no lights associated with it. So even if we go up to this light switch and we start hitting F and sending out our amazing line traces, which aren't being tracked anymore, as you can see, it doesn't turn the lights on or off. So in order to add lights to the array, because we made the array public by opening the eyeball, if you look on the right hand side under our details, you'll notice that by default we have something called lights, and we can add elements to it. I added 3 as there are 3 lights we want added. Use the eyedropper tool on each individual element and click on the lights to add them to the array. Once you've added all 3, let's go ahead and do another test. If we head back over to the light switch and we press F, you'll note that all 3 lights have turned on. They're kind of hard to see with the new lumen system, but they are on. If I hit F and go back, you'll note now that they are off. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know if there's something you'd like me to cover. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.